his hand. He has two sticks that basically fly the operating controls of the aircraft. By watching the airplane in the sky and controlling them with his hands, he can fly the aircraft virtually the same as its full-size counterpart. Model aviation has taken on a number of forms, but it was really the invention of the transistor or electronic IC chips that brought it into where we are today. On the takeoff roll now, ladies and gentlemen. Not quite as bankrupt as the full-size counterpart. Air Canada taking that 747 off for a rip. Mr. Steve Sawchuk out of Russell, Manitoba, flying that huge 747 airliner. Had a draw earlier on, and I'm sure we got some passengers on board. This thing is big enough to carry a watermelon. 4 engines screaming as he comes back across the line. Pilot Steve Sawchuk at the controls. If you ever watch Steve walk across the field with this thing, that rudder fin is about as high as his belt buckle. This is one big airplane. On the far side of the field, this is a big flying subject. Now you understand the radio has a range of about 1 kilometer. Steve can see that aircraft for about half of that. So really, if he can see it, he can fly it. About 3/4 of a mile or 1 kilometer is what these radios are good for in terms of range. Here comes a low-level strafing run from a 747. Beautiful. The other part about this is that we have no instruments. We don't have airspeed indicators and gyros and all that kind of stuff. These airplanes are flown by the seat of the pants. So as you see, the pilot is in complete control of the aircraft. By watching it, controlling it from the transmitter in his hands, he flies it, like I say, by the seat of his pants. Now Steve has the tough part, getting it back down on the runway without hitting anything, including the earth. On the ground, safe and sound, 747 out of Russell, Manitoba. Steve Sawchuk flying that big Air Canada jet. He's taxiing over to the far side of the runway because I think Steve figures he's going to need all the help he can get. Boy, the tail of that airplane's as tall as he is. You know that? Got all the engines up and running. On the takeoff roll, here comes that Air Canada 747. And it is airborne. Watch out for the tree, watch out for the power line. On to the left-hand turn now. Here comes that big old 747. That's a beautiful airplane in the sky. Steve Sawchuk flying that airplane. 4 engines singing. Now he'll make a U-turn with it. Boy, she's big. Sounds more like an A320 Airbus, but it's a 747. Giant job. Shows you where we come from with radio control. These airplanes get bigger and more exotic all the time. Now Steve will line that thing up with a runway. He's going to come by with dropping her down, picking up speed. You can hear the engines singing as they come back around. Steve Sawchuk off from the right-hand side now. He'll throttle that airplane back. I did hear one engine going a little sour, so we'll see what happens when he gets ready for a landing. The engines are back. The airplane is on final approach. Beautiful. Nice one, Steve. Steve Sawchuk flying that really huge 747. And the 747 is off the ground. Comes around from left to right. Steve's aircraft, that 747, he likes them big. That aircraft has a 12.5-foot wingspan. It's almost as big as a full-size one. 5 feet tall at the tail. Should be an interesting pass as Steve Sawchuk brings the 747 down. Here comes Steve's 747. Got the power on, got the nose down, picking up speed. Meanwhile, on final approach, Steve has his engine powered back on that 747. Boy, I tell you, over the fence, and he's down on the runway. Another successful flight, 12.5 feet of wingspan on that 747. Meanwhile,
get out of the way, Steve. I'm coming in now. Okay.
An extreme amount of work goes into a project like this to get 4 motors to work in sync, your landing gear, your whole frame and structure, and then the detail to make it look how it looks. And there we go. Isn't that beautiful? Steve Sawchuk is piloting this, who is also responsible. A big responsibility is putting the show together. For those of you wondering, this plane is a show plane. It's not designed to do aerobatics, nor will it. It is just designed to do and be flown exactly how you're seeing it today, and Steve's doing a wonderful job. Very nicely done, Steve.
Looks like Steve Sawchuk has that big C-130 airborne. On the far side of the field, that big 20-foot C-130 of Steve Sawchuk's got her airborne, got all 4 engines a churning. Oh yeah, I got the power up now. That's pretty bumpy up there, Steve. That's a big airplane, 20 foot wide, 75 pounds, 4 Weed Whacker engines on board. And as you can see, even at its size, that airplane's getting bumped around pretty good by the wind up there. There's a fair bit of turbulence today. Wind is pushing that airplane way downwind in a hurry. Steve pushing the nose down now. Keep her off the trees, Steve. We're over the fence, end of the runway. We got 1 engine out of 4 still running. We got the biggest glider in town. down and safe, that big C-130 Hercules. Steve Salchuk at the controls. Boy, I tell you, everybody holds their breath. That thing is so big. This aircraft that you're looking at now is a copy of a C-130 Hercules aircraft. Steve Salchuk at the controls of the airplane. Into the air it goes. This airplane is 20 feet across. That is a big airplane. The tail on the airplane is almost 6 feet tall. It is flown by 4 Poulin Weed Whacker engines, and they're all gas engines, 20 cc's. 3. Oh, do we have 3 and 1 stopped? Okay. All right, stay above the trees, Steve. This is a very large airplane to be around having a little trouble with 1 engine going. Steve is struggling, as you can see, to keep the aircraft running. And he's going to get down over the trees. And, oh yeah, there we go. Number 2 engine looks like it lost a little fire. And Steve is now very wisely deciding to bring that big C-130 back down to the runway. Dennis Ward built this airplane. You're right, Dennis. There's not an over amount of power, is there? You need all 4 churning before that thing's going to get airborne.
Just a magnificent model to see, just moving around, even stationary on the ground. Well, we've got some fuel in this, and we'll see here. I think we're ready to go. every time I see Steve, his plane seems to be getting larger and larger, and I was asking him how his eyesight was. Is that the reason you can see it better for the larger plane? And he laughed. He says, no. There it is. Isn't that gorgeous? Just huge. From a distance, you didn't know any better. It was a real thing. Very good, Steve. Thank you very much. Very impressive. I think we better cut the grass about another 4 feet wider for next year.